on Canaanite religion and veneration of the dead. The veneration of the dead, including one's ancestors, is based on love and respect for the deceased. In some cultures, it is related to beliefs that the dead have a continued existence and may possess the ability to influence the fortune of the living. Some groups venerate their direct familial ancestors. Certain religious groups, in particular the Eastern Orthodox churches, Anglican Church, and Catholic Church, venerate saints as intercessors with God. The latter also believes in prayer for departed souls in purgatory. Other religious groups, however, consider veneration of the dead to be idolatry and a sin. In European, Asian, Oceanian, African, and Afro-diasporic cultures, which includes but should be distinguished from multiple cultures and indigenous populations in the Americas who were never influenced by the African diaspora. The goal of ancestor veneration is to ensure the ancestors' continued well-being and positive disposition towards the living, and sometimes to ask for special favors or assistance. The social or non-religious function of ancestor veneration is to cultivate kinship values such as filial piety, family loyalty, and continuity of the family lineage. Ancestor veneration occurs in societies with every degree of social, political, and technological complexity, and it remains an important component of various religious practices in modern times. So again, we want to remember that we are keeping our focus on America being the land of Egypt, okay, or you can say Africa. Now, we want to recognize these different locations as portals to different realms, as our ancestors believed that crossing waters or certain locations meant going into different realms or portals, so to speak. So, Native Americans were not heavily concerned with the veneration of the dead, though they were known to bury the dead with clothes and tools, as well as occasionally leave food and drink at the gravesite. Pueblo Indians, however, supported a cult of the dead, which worshipped or petitioned the dead through ritualistic dances. We will go deeper into that when we get to it. So in Judaism, like Islam, has a complicated relationship to ancestor veneration / worship, grave shrines, and other related concepts. It is thought ancient Israelite religion and pre-Israelite Canaanites practiced a form of ancestor worship in which ancestors were raised to the status of gods, and some form of similar practice was likely seen as acceptable in Israelite religion until King Josiah's reign. In biblical literature and in contemporary prayer, the ancestors, particularly Abraham, Moses, Aaron, Jacob / Israel, or the patriarchs and the matriarchs are often referred to. Stress is placed on the identity of the Jewish people as being the seed, house, or children of these figures. So now when we think about ancient Egypt, I want you to think about the Mississippi as the Nile Valley or Nile River. So ancient Egyptian funerary practices. So although some historians claim that ancient Egyptian society was a death cult because of its elaborate tombs and mummification rituals, it was the opposite. The philosophy that this world is but a vale of tears and that to die and be with God is a better existence than an earthly one was relatively unknown among the ancient Egyptians. This was not to say that they were unacquainted with the harshness of life. Rather, their ethos included a sense of continuity between this life and the next. The Egyptian people loved the culture, customs, and religion of their daily lives so much that they wanted to continue them in the next, although some might hope for a better station in the beautiful West Egyptian afterlife. So again, we think about the West Coast as the sphere of the dead. Tombs were housing in the hereafter, and so they were carefully constructed and decorated just as homes for the living were. Mummification was a way to preserve the corpse so the ka, meaning soul of the deceased, could return to receive offerings of the things she or he enjoyed while alive. If mummification was not affordable, a ka statue in the likeness of the deceased was carved for this purpose. The blessed dead were collectively called the Aku, or shining ones, singular Ak. They were described as shining as gold in the belly of Nut, and were indeed depicted as golden stars on the roofs of many tombs and temples. The process by which a Ka became an Ak was not automatic upon death. It involved a 70-day journey through the Duat, or other world, which led to judgment before Wasir, or Osiris, Lord of the dead, where the Ka's heart would be weighed on a scale against the feather of Mayat, representing truth. However, if the Ka was not properly prepared, this journey could be fraught with dangerous pitfalls and strange demons. Hence, some of the earliest religious texts discovered, such as the Papyrus of Ani, commonly known as the Book of the Dead, and the Pyramid texts, were actually written as guides to help the deceased successfully navigate the Duat. If the heart was in balance with the feather of Mayat, the Ka passed judgment and was granted access to the beautiful West as an Ak who was Ma'aharu, true of voice, to dwell among the gods and other Aku. At this point only was the Ka deemed worthy to be venerated by the living through rites and offerings. Those who became lost in the Duat or deliberately tried to avoid judgment became the unfortunate and sometimes dangerous Mutu, the restless dead. For the few whose truly evil hearts outweighed the feather, the goddess Amit waited patiently behind Wasir's judgment seats to consume them. She was a composite creature resembling three of the deadliest animals in Egypt: the crocodile, the hippopotamus, and the lion. Being fed to Amit was to be consigned to the eternal void, to be unmade as a Ka. Besides being eaten by Amit, the worst fate a Ka could suffer after physical death was to be forgotten. For this reason, ancestor veneration in ancient Egypt was an important rite of remembrance in order to keep the Ka alive in this life as well as in the next. Royals, nobles, and the wealthy made contracts with their local priests to perform prayers and give offerings at their tombs. In return, the priests were allowed to keep a portion of the offerings as payment for services rendered. Some tomb inscriptions were even invited passersby to speak aloud the names of the deceased within, which also helped to perpetuate their memory, and to offer water, prayers, or other things if they so desired. In the private homes of the less wealthy, niches were carved into the walls for the purpose of housing images of familial Aku and to serve as altars of veneration. Many of these same religious beliefs and ancestor veneration practices are still carried on today in the religion of Kemetic Orthodoxy. Ancient Israelite religion, it is thought that the word Sheol, the afterlife referred to in biblical literature, comes from the word meaning to inquire. Pre-Israelite Canaanites gave their ancestors offerings of food and drink, as well as symbolic vessel offerings, which, even empty, provided both in the afterlife. In light of this, honor thy father and mother is thought by some to have referenced this practice, particularly as it predates the ban of ancestor worship and necromancy by Josiah. North Africa, which is considered Egypt, which we are going to continually refer to the Americas, so the northern region of North America. In Egypt, a form of adorcism entwined with veneration of the dead, which one academic referred to as ghost riders. And we remember that Baal is referred to as a rider of clouds, which a ghost would be kind of considered a cloud. A ghost who came to possess a person would be honored with a dedicated grave monument or sanctuary where locals would make offerings and swear oaths. Those who swore false oaths may be punished by the ghost in residence. This ghost was considered both powerful and something for others to fear. These ghosts are not necessarily saints. In fact, those who hold these beliefs believe very holy persons never possess others in this way, as they are always in the presence of God. But like saints, they function as intermediaries with God. In some cases, these may be family shrines, which are not frequented by outsiders, but some, usually older shrines, are frequented by many. When asking for aid from one of these spirits, one may often pledge an animal sacrifice upon aid being rendered, which is also done with saints.